know which ones I'm picking yet, but so you can at least know ahead of time what films you might be talking about. Amy, these are the 10 from which you may be pulled from.
We already talked about Ratatouille. That was on her top 10.
Sorry, then 9. It's fine. We're only talking about 5 of them, so.
Okay.
You're 9, Caillou. Well, that's not helpful.
So going by the system, though, how do I not like why would anything I haven't seen be in my top 60
Well,
or whatever?
we have to. It's gonna be based on the votes of other people there. One of the things we have to do, we haven't had a chance to talk this out. We have to figure out a system in which we at least make sure someone's seen something, and you have to use basis off of how they're going to argue, and we probably have to try at some level to. These films are going to shuffle because we just haven't had time to properly organize it because just we've had the time to try and watch some of these movies.
Okay.
But like this isn't gonna be a perfect system. Like,
well, you have our lists of what we haven't seen. Are there any? You have that broken down into which movies are the ones that only one person has seen?
I did. I don't think.
And how many of those are there? Because those are the ones that somebody needs to watch.
Yeah. I do, but I don't think. Well, we'll just look at this one really quickly. Everyone look at I don't have time to do that part right now. So
okay.
Of the ones I just put up, I haven't actually seen a lot of Amy's. Maybe a different subset of them.
You're saying you just put them up. Where did you put them up at?
I just put them in the group chat
of the Google Hangout itself.
Okay. I'm not seeing that.
Should be a button for summer.
Like I have the chat with you, Caillou, and the video chat, and I don't have anything.
All right, it's fine. I'm just going to pick the 5 that are going from each list then. This is fine.
Here, I'll just copy yours over into the Gmail chat, Amy.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's fine. This is pointless. I'm just going to tell the 5 we're going to talk about for each person.
There we go.
Mainly because I picked them randomly. I happened to pick a giant swatch of Amy's in which I have seen like half the ones I haven't seen.
Well, so wait. So which one can we just? All right, whatever. Which ones of these have you not seen?
A lot.
Okay, the only one on Amy's list that I haven't seen is The Proposition. Have you seen The Proposition?
I have not.
Okay, so that's the only one on her list that we shouldn't do yet.
We're going to talk about Casino Royale, V for Vendetta.
Oh, I haven't actually seen Jesus Camp. I only saw half of that.
The Orphanage. There Will Be Blood. And Michael Clayton.
Okay. I have seen all those. So that's fine.
I haven't seen 2 of them, but and technically I haven't seen The Orphanage, but I read its script, so I know what the hell happens in it, and it's enough for me to talk about it.
Okay.
Caillou, we're going to talk about Nick and Nora. May have picked it. Well, which one did Amy? Which one did? Well, I guess I have to. Let's go look. It's fine.
Yeah, Amy, which one of my list have you not seen?
Poughkeepsie Tapes, Sleuth, and Red Belt.
Those are the only three?
Yep.
David, have you seen any of those three?
I've seen Red Belt because we talked about it.
Okay, so let's not do the Poughkeepsie Tapes and Sleuth.
No, I wasn't going to do those anyhow.
Okay. So what are my 5?
Bring back up the chat. Nick and Nora. God, I mean, I just pick a chunk. Wow, this is what happens when you pick them randomly. I picked a chunk from both your lists of things I haven't seen.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to necessarily front load it, because ideally the smarter thing is you front load the ones we have. We get some of the ones we have, and then give people time if they want to watch them to watch them. Anyhow, we'll do Nick and Nora, Red Belt, Sunshine. I haven't seen it, but you two have, and I've had to listen to Caillou talk about it extensively, so it's fine.
I vote no.
There's voting. There's no voting in this podcast.
I'm going to, out of fairness to Caillou, I'm going to not do The Fountain yet, because this will make me finally watch the movie.
Okay.
Because I feel like I should be nice and actually give him a reasonable chance of getting a movie that was like 11 on his list in the list.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll do Sweeney Todd, and I'm actually just going to go pick another movie from your list, guy, because I need to pick something I've seen.
That's fine.
Closer.
Okay.
And then okay, on mine. Let's go look at that. Where's that list?
God. Only 4 days away from Magician's Getting.
Magician. Okay, if I remember correctly, neither one of you have technically seen The Illusionist because
I was asleep.
You were asleep, so we can't do that. I feel like neither one of you have seen Beautiful.
No, I haven't.
No.
So not that. Everyone's seen Up, so we'll do that.
Okay.
I presume everyone's still Up in the Air,
Yes.
so we'll do that. 500 Days of Summer. I presume everyone's. I know Caillou and I saw. I believe that wasn't on. Wasn't on your list, right, Amy? When did you
No.
see?
Have you seen it, Amy?
Which one?
500 Days of Summer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll do that.
I'm sure we've all seen The King's Speech.
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to somewhat set this off. Did everyone see did people see Winter's Bone?
Yes.
I saw it.
Okay. We'll do that. I want to save The King's Speech then. And then We'll do. Amy, did you see Another Year?
Another year. No, I don't think I did.
Okay. I know Kai and I saw it because we saw it at the same time.
I'm not sure if I even know what Another Year is.
It's a Mike Lee drama.
Yeah. It's a Mike Lee drama about old people.
Outstanding.
By, about, and for.
Yeah, that's all true. It's still really good, but definitely not for Kai and I were definitely not the target audience of that movie when we saw it.
Yeah, I felt that way when I watched A Late Quartet, one with Maggie Smith and Billy Connolly. I was just like, wow, this is not for me. I mean, there's definitely people who this is for, and I'm not one of them.
Yeah, no. Basically, I left that and was like, all right, so when we left that movie, I was like, that was really, really good. It was not in any way, shape, or form for me. Oh, goody.
You don't care right now about making sure that we've all seen all these?
No, because we can if you want to super front load it, but I was just going to go accept it. I was just going to accept that we probably better get out of the way, that there's going to be one people haven't seen, because that there's just no way in hell we're getting all caught up on all these.
I would rather try and do that this time, just because like we should actually like organize or whatever the process of people trying to watch some of these movies, and they should be able to decide what movies they're going to watch.
Okay. God damn it. Fine. Then we're just doing 4 each this time.
Okay.
So I'm doing Up in the Air, Five Days Summer, Winter's Bone.
We're taking Red Belt off my list because Amy hasn't seen it.
Yep. Well, no, you're taking a lot off your list then. Like, only thing that still applies off your list is Nick and Nora. And Closer.
Oh, okay. You haven't seen Sweeney Todd, Amy? Or David?
I have not seen it, no.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
I thought you'd seen that. My mistake.
Okay, fine. Let me go grab.
So I'm Nick and Nora. Closer.
Okay, then we can add to yours, Caillou. Everyone see Dread?
Yes.
Okay, Dread. Everyone see Minority Report?
Yes.
Okay, there you go, Kay.
I've seen Minority Report.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's good. I thought you put it on your list without having seen it.
Okay. And Amy's for...
Then Amy would just be Casino Royale, V for Vendetta. Almost on principle, I want to say The Orphanage still, because I've read the script, and there's no way in hell I'm watching that movie after having read the script. But fine, for the sake of doing this for Caillou, I won't do that.
Well, I mean, if you've decided that that's equivalent and you're never going to watch it, then it doesn't matter.
It is equivalent. Is absolutely based on what that movie is.
I'm fine with you making that distinction for yourself.
But for be nice, this one time I won't do it. We'll go with Casino Royale, V for Vendetta.
We've all seen Rescue Dawn, right? Because I saw that with you.
I haven't seen Rescue Dawn.
Really?
Completely mixing it up with a different person.
Okay.
We'll do
Michael Clayton.
Moulin. I haven't. Look, I told you I have not seen Michael Clayton or There Will Be Blood.
I don't remember these things.
I literally just said there's only 2 movies.
You know, I don't listen to you when you talk.
Well, that's unfortunate this time. Anyhow, Moulin Rouge. I've definitely seen. I assume you've seen Caillou.
I've seen enough of that film to last me a lifetime.
And Burn After Reading.
Okay.
Okay.
Or the final one, Sammy.
We're just going to talk about 4 because that may give us time for me to maybe just somewhat talk about the process of watching other movies. But
Sure.
more than likely, it's more going to give me the time to explain to you how we're going to receive your email, and then I'm going to leave. But we'll see.
Yeah. If you don't mind, don't start with me, just so I can kind of get a feel for how we're doing this.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll go first.
Okay.
Unless Caillou just is dying to talk about something.
I'm fine.
It's fine.
Whatever you want to do.
No, I will go with you first, Caillou. We're going to talk about Nick and Nora first.
That's fine. I can extemporaneous for 2 minutes on any of these films.
Well, so can I.
I've got a fucking stopwatch set up, so.
I mean, so can I. I don't like starting with me, so.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's weird if I talk and then keep talking.
All right. Are we quite ready to begin?
Amy, do you want to go third then?
Sure.
Is that going to be easier for you? I mean, we may
Yeah.
mix it up as we go along, but at least for the first.
Oh,
time.
yeah. That'd be great.
Okay. That is fine. That'll give you time. That's why I wanted you to do the list.
It's going to be me, David, Amy, David, me.
Yeah, exactly.
David,
Just
me.
ready to talk about all your movies. Okay. Okay, rolling.
Rolling.
1, 2.
3, 4.
5, 6.
Okay. I'm going to assume everything's fine.
That's not good.
What's the matter?
Okay.
Are you not getting a waveform?
Hold on a second. No, I'm testing something else.
Yeah.
It's more like it keeps being like. I was making sure because it looked like when I'm just talking normally, it was like clipping, and I was like, "That's not possible."
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay, let me just apple, oranges, potatoes, bananas. Okay, I think that may be just we're gonna hear background noise from my apartment, aka Matt's playing Final Fantasy 15. Okay.
Okay, that'll sound perfect.
Look, man, Sound Studio's not ready yet.
Oh Lord. Okay.
I don't know what to tell you. It's best for him to get. So here, I'll ask Matt if he turns down a little bit.
Grab water real quick.
Matt, turn down the game slightly. Okay, he turned it down some. All right, sorry about that. Everyone ready still?
Yes.
You good, Kay?
Dallas is go.
I'm back.
Oh, well, that's good. Okay. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Life in the Kraken podcast, your dose of pop culture deep within the belly of the beast. I'm your host, David Robertson, editor-in-chief of We've Always Lived in the Kraken blog. And joining me in the Texas branch, we have managing editor of the same blog, Josh Kayusewicz.
So when I watch football and they go into the 2-minute warning, the 2 minutes seem to last forever. This fact will become relevant soon.
Yeah, that's a noted problem with pretty much all sports, except soccer. Also joining us, we have special contributor and writer, Amy Atomika Davison.
Yeah, but at the end of soccer games, the game just doesn't stop. And I don't understand that. And it frustrates me. Plus, I don't like soccer.
Also, somewhat fair point. Like I said, all sports have weird things in the games. Well, except baseball, which is just all weird because there's no time limits. So, yeah. So we are continuing our pursuit to try and create our own top 100 list for of movies from the 21st century. So far, we have endeavored to talk about some of the easier discussions, things we had unanimous consensus on, some consensus on, or just our own films made our top 10 lists. which, got on without really any argument because, I decided that's how it would be. Now we're moving into the real work. We have 150-ish films left to discuss from a combination of three of our lists, and only about 30 spots left. So we're going to have a kind of different process to try and help us get through these films a little bit quicker, because otherwise we would be here forever. So for these next films, we're going to basically have a 5-minute clock. And the way it will work is the person who nominates the film will get 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes to speak of the movie. They can use that 2 minutes however they see fit. If they are talking when the 2 minutes are up, more or less, they will be cut off at that point, with potentially some exceptions for finishing sentences. After that, the two other panelists will kind of offer their rebuttals to or thoughts of the movie in general. And then the person will have 1 more minute to kind of discuss just any final thoughts they have about the movie to kind of put it forth. Each person is going to do their best to try to offer why each film should be on the list. And we're going to try not to do the best we can to give every film at least somewhat of a chance of vying, as opposed to thinking of the numbers game. That means only some of our films will be on the list, if any. When this is done, we will have kind of another voting process in which each of us will vote based on the films that were not on our list, since it's kind of assumed that each of us would like the films that made our own list to make the overall list. And we'll kind of do another round of looking at how unanimous that is and kind of see where we go from there. But for now, we're going to each discuss the movies and we'll see what happens. So first up in this challenge, Caillou gets to be the guinea pig.
Now my 2 minutes is like a football 2 minutes, right? It's going to last like 15, 20, and maybe go into overtime.
Definitely is not. It's going to last actually 2 minutes. So, have fun with that.
And you only get 2 timeouts.
Yeah, okay. I'll hold on to those.
No timeouts. Okay, so the first film that Caillou is going to speak of is... I've just decided to tell the person to say their own movie. So Caillou, we'll just cue you again from there.
You have to tell me which movie it is, though.
Oh, we're doing Nick and Nora first.
Okay, you didn't say that.
No, I did tell you that. So we're going to start with Nick and Nora well before we started the podcast.
I don't listen to you when you talk.
Okay, this isn't going to work. I'll do it because I can't trust you to remember things. Okay. Josh is going to be our initial guinea pig, and he is going to start with Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. Your time begins now.
Nick and Nora is a small movie, but it kind of proves that there are no small movies. It's a really great romantic comedy. It takes place over one long day in New York City, one long night mostly. It's really funny. It's really sweet. It's one of Michael Cera's better roles. Kat Dennings is really great. The direction is spot on. And that may be the best thing about it. It has that quality of the timing is perfect, the jokes land, the emotional beats work, the character work is actually really neat, and it kind of presents this funny and very sweet portrait of these 2 young people who are trying to figure out what they want out of their lives, what they want out of their relationships. And yeah, it's just got like one really great scene after another. Lots of really funny side characters, especially Nick's gay bandmates. And it feels really good. It's a really good movie. And I think there should be room on this list for movies that are just really good. Oh gosh, I have another 40 seconds left to talk about this film.
Which you don't have to use, as I feel like I must emphasize.
I need to use every second of this. I think the cinematography is actually really gorgeous. I think the use of music is pretty excellent. And I feel like this is an important film because it really is like the romantic comedy for me of like the millennial generation, in the way that its social attitudes, the way that it is really a movie about all these young people kind of alone in New York without adult supervision, kind of living their lives, and it's about the things that are important to them. It's based on a really good YA novel, and it really also balances the male and female perspectives really well. So I think overall it's got a lot to recommend itself. It's a really great experience, and I rewatch it all the time. So that's my pitch.
All right, fair enough. Amy, any thoughts in rebuttal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Kai and I have ever talked about it, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of this movie. I saw it in the theaters, and yeah, I mean, it's a really specific kind of moment it's capturing. I mean, you know, that age where you're, you know, still pretty young, but don't really have a career or anything serious going on in your life just yet. But it's so, it's just earnest. And I love watching earnest films that, you know, kind of wear their heart on the sleeve and don't pander and, you know, don't try to like come up with some kind of simulacrum of how people are supposed to act. It just feels very naturalistic, and it makes a really good 1-2 punch with this and then Scott Pilgrim, you know, as a Michael Cera millennial double feature.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a very underrated movie. I think like a lot of people haven't seen it, or kind of like sometimes maybe a lot of people sometimes forget about it. It almost made my list. It was, you know, definitely on my short list. I like it quite a bit. This is probably my favorite Michael Cera role. I think he fit most cleanly with this role specifically, and Kat Dennings also was a good foil for him because she helped really bring out like a lot of the way he acts works really well with the way she acts, and so they were like a good fit together. I'm kind of sad they didn't continue to try to do other movies, or that Kat Dennings kind of didn't continue to try to do movies in general. But
yeah, she's just a broke girl now.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a really solid movie. It's definitely a strong contender. Amy, do you have any final quick thoughts before we move back to Caillou?
Just that I wish I saw more of Kat Denning.
We can all agree on that. All right, Caillou, do you have any added thoughts you need, even though you already spent 40 extra seconds talking about things you really aren't ready to talk about?
No, I love this movie, and I want more people to see it.
All right, that's I think as good as end point as we can get for it. So, moving on. The next film we're going to talk about is a film from my list, and that is Pixar's Up. And I will begin now. Up is my favorite Pixar film. Which is kind of a weird thing to say because I remember when I first saw it, I would never have thought that. But I just really enjoy one thing. Peter Docter is probably my favorite of the Pixar stable of like creators and directors at this point. He already made the list for Inside Out as well. This obviously came first. The opening of Up obviously is what most people go to because it's just one of the more affecting things that's happened in cinema. I will go ahead and get out of the way and not try to pretend that the rest of the movie is as good as that opening, because that would be kind of impossible. But I do think the rest of the movie is actually a really solid, fun adventure movie. It's beautiful. I really liked a lot of the art style, how Pixar used it there. I thought it differentiated. They did a really good job of using the side characters and they built. I think the idea of using a main character being an old man and then having him relate to younger people was a kind of inspired turn for Pixar, considering a lot of times what their characters go. This is a film I thought was one of the more, I think it kind of also showed a harkening of like one of the more ambitious things they've done in terms of like, it's just so different and the kind of things they can do and no one else would consider doing, which makes it kind of even sadder now that they seem to be going away from that. Up to me just was like, the music is great and Up. The way, I guess I like the way the shot compositions works, and it was just a very entertaining movie that hit both like an emotional, like sad, bittersweet thing, plus like fun, adventurous tones that kind of came together to form, like, to me, just the best Pixar experience I've seen. And I'm good. So you guys can go ahead. Caillou, go ahead and start your bell.
I think that I agree with you that the original montage of the movie is some of the best stuff that Pixar has done. I think that I love the character work in this film. I love the fact that, like, it's this old guy. He's really grumpy, and you get to learn a lot about how he feels about the world changing around him. And then they pair him with this young kid who, wants for his merit badge to help him cross the street, but he also wants to help him cross his heart, as they say in the film. And kind of keep the promises that he's made to himself and to his wife that he's kind of failed to fulfill. So I think all that is fantastic. I love the end when he's, you know, getting rid of the stuff in the house. Like, it's the idea that you can move on from these things, and you don't have to be weighed down by them forever. But I think the reason I didn't put this movie on my list is that I think like none of the rest of the movie works as well as that stuff, and so it feels really kind of shallow and goofy to have like dogs flying around in planes, and I don't think like the action or the comedy really works in this movie as well as the character works. So that's kind of why I'm kind of down on it as far as Pixar goes.
Fair enough, Amy.
Yeah, similar opinion. Pixar really set the emotional stakes and bar pretty high with that prologue, and then the movie is just this really hard tonal shift, and then just kind of wrote. Not bad, not great. It's just something we've seen before, and it's okay.
Yeah, like the middle of that movie to me feels like it could have been a DreamWorks film. It's just that it's bracketed by Pixar makes it feel even worse for that reason.
Okay. Well, I would first off say that DreamWorks can do good things and they actually try. So I don't know if I necessarily think that's the worst thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm saying like I would have been like, oh, that's a good movie, and then moved on with my life. And because it's Pixar, we still think about it.
I think it is not as I think a lot of people think it, when you say it's road, I just think a lot of stuff they did in that movie from the character works is unique enough that it overcomes a lot of anything else. I found most of that stuff far more entertaining than I think a lot of people did. And I think a lot of it fits I still think a lot of it still fits thematically, even when things got crazy. To me, this movie just hit a lot more emotional highs than a lot of other Pixar films. And I'll admit that some of this is just, I think this movie had such great high moments that it makes up for the fact that maybe there are other Pixar films that are more consistently, or movies in general that are more consistently like greater good, but this one had just a high number of excellent moments to make up for facts that things that weren't as excellent. And to me, that's always carried it over compared to other ones, even compared to other Pixar films we've already talked about, which, you know, I would consider much more honestly common and rote than this one was. But that is what ultimately I think Up is just kind of a great movie and deserving of being on this list, more so than any other Pixar film. But that is it for now. So that closes the Up chapter. We're now going to go on to the first one of Amy's list that we are going to speak about, and that is Moulin Rouge. So Amy, you can begin now.
I mean, Moulin Rouge is not a film for everybody, and I'm going to start off by saying when the first time I saw it, I wasn't sure if it was a film for me. It's very hyperkinetic, a lot of things being thrown at you both visually and in terms of dialogue and character, and it doesn't really ever slow down to let you catch up with it. But it's just a gorgeous movie, and again, just one of those very earnest movies that puts all of its feeling out there and isn't ashamed to have a good time. And I think combined with the great use of the songbook, which almost every song in the movie is a reworked pop song by classic rock artists. It's just a really great innovation with great performances from everybody involved, but maybe Nicole Kidman's best work. Really good work from Ewan McGregor too.
Are you good, or do you have anything else?
You got another minute if you want it.
Do I have to go another minute? Okay.
You don't have to. Yeah.
Fill it if you want.
But definitely my favorite point in the whole movie is the love song medley with the elephant outside, and it's just a huge production, and they make it look like it's just a few takes, but it's obviously something that took ages and ages to block and put together, and the songs are just catchy as hell, and it's nice that there's a musical that features David Bowie.
All right. Then I guess we'll go to the rebuttal. Guy, go ahead.
I love Baz Luhrmann's Shakespeare, his Romeo and Juliet, but I've never found anything that really matched that in his oeuvre, and I don't think Moulin Rouge does either. My primary reaction to the movie was like, oh god, sensory overload. Like, it's too busy, it's cut too fast, the production design is too crazy. And I think like the difference between this and Romeo and Juliet is that like when he takes his very like kind of MTV pop infused style and brings it to something that has a really strong backbone, that it works really well. And I feel like the problem is that like Moulin Rouge's story does not have the same kind of strong backbone that makes the juxtaposition between this like turn of the century or whatever love story and his like bombastic pop infused jukebox musical. I don't feel like the juxtaposition works as well with this. And the whole thing is just like, I don't know, it's too saccharine for me. It's just way too saccharine.
Well, you don't have a soul, so that makes sense.
I do too.
I will say that I do also agree it's a sensory overload, though I think that's a positive because I think that's a great thing a movie can do. I think the visuals and like the music all blend together in a really fantastic way. It's probably my favorite of the Baz Luhrmann's movies. And it definitely got consideration in general on my list. Ultimately, I didn't put it on there because I will agree. Even by musical standards, I felt that like the backbone of that story was a little weak. It does pull some things off really well. And I will agree the performance is like Nicole Kidman got to give a performance that she just really hasn't got to give since then. And Hugh McGregor kind of showed why for a little while he got a lot more consideration before he kind of, I guess, just gave up of the leading man. And it worked really well. But yeah, I think it is a little bit, at times the script kind of gets away from itself and it makes the film like, while it does stuff really well, Luhrmann can't quite keep up with his own style at points in the movie, which kind of hurts it. And that's why I ultimately didn't make my list. But I will say that I definitely like it more than Caillou Seems to, because I think it's a really good movie. Amy, do you have any final thoughts or quick rebuttals?
I kind of agree with both of you on that. I mean, it is sensory overload. And honestly, I don't know that I got all of it or even most of it on the first watch. It's one of those films that really rewards additional viewings, but I think it's worth it. Like you said, it's something that, film has that luxury of, throwing so much at you at once. And I think if you're willing to put in the effort, it's very rewarding.
All right. Is that it? Do you have anything else final to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay. This is not for the podcast. I'm just saying this right now for both your sake. If it helps when you're doing your 2 minutes, because it's going to be the same amount of time anyhow, if you decide that you only want to speak for like a minute or a minute and a half to leave yourself hypothetically more time, if you think a film's going to you need a lot of time to rebuttal for a movie, you can do that.
Well, it actually seems like so far what we need to do is the other way around, because none of us are using our rebuttal time. Whereas, sometimes you might want an extra 30 seconds at the beginning.
I just think that may change based on other ones. I think it depends on your film, because part of it also is like, you have to decide we're going to do it. We probably need to be a little meaner about the films that aren't on our list, but.
Well, I mean, I'll be mean when it deserves it. I mean, I'm
That's kind of my point. I mean, it's fine. You can just use the extra minute to continue talking about other points. Like, you don't have to, if you can't finish it, you can just use the extra, like, you don't have to do, it's final thoughts. It doesn't have to be, like, I never said it, even in the intro, I never said it had to be a rebuttal. I was just like, you can rebut, you can also just reinforce, like you did, where you're like, no, Nick and Nora is awesome. Vote for Nick and Nora. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's more
okay. Listen, David, I don't want to be that guy, but I am running the stopwatch, and you keep going over on your segment, so don't do that.
That is not true. Because I have a stopwatch and you were full of shit, since I definitely finished all of my stuff before, so go fuck yourself.
Uh-huh.
Anyhow. All right, so that is Amy's first nomination with Moulin Rouge. We'll keep going. Caillou, it is your turn again. This time you were going to talk about Minority Report. So begin now.
Minority Report I love it more every time I see it. It's a sci-fi noir. It's this incredibly perceptive vision of the future. Spielberg went out to all these futurists to find out, what kind of cars we'll be driving, what kind of UI we'll be using on our computers and things like that, and that stuff is slowly becoming true. At the same time, I think it tells a really excellent and twisty mystery story. I think it really explores this concept of criminal justice and the idea of destiny and when people have choices. And I think the two sides of that really interact very well, because the sci-fi environment that we see is one that gives people few good choices, really. It's a lot of, you can get these future drugs, you can get these ridiculous surgeries, and at the other end of things, you're walking around and you're trapped all the time. The government will come and take you away for something you only thought about doing, and so it really suggests that, like, this is a world where personal freedom is something that's really hard to find. And in a way, I think Tom Cruise's arc in this is like an arc towards finding his own personal freedom after being part of the system. So it's very classically dystopian, but it's also got a lot of Spielberg touches. There's a lot of excellent black comedy in this. I think the acting is pretty much excellent. Everybody involved, like down to the smallest character, is like really giving that role their own. The cinematography is gorgeous. The action is very strong, especially with all the future weapons they have in it. So I think it's propulsive and deep, and it feels really great. And I always love seeing it. I think it's some of Spielberg's best work.
Okay. I will start with rebuttal and say that I will say this film I always give credit, because at least I can never say Spielberg wasn't trying when making this movie, which I can certainly, as we've kind of talked about, say for some of his more recent work. I just always felt this film was one of the ones where the ambition never fit the actual work. The movie to me is always more of a mess than it probably should have been. I don't think he ever had quite the handle on it that I think a lot of people seem to think it does. Like, it's not a bad movie. Like, I enjoy it when I've seen it quite a bit, but I never felt the film, I don't know, the full grasp of exactly I mean, that story is always really difficult to tell, like the precognition and what that means storyline. And so I'm not going to pretend like I'm not going to sit here and say like he did such a terrible job with it, but it's a really hard one to do. And he just ultimately, I don't think did it as well as I would have liked him to. And even with the strong performances, the story and script to me just never quite met up. Amy, what were your thoughts on Minority Report?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of times we talk about like good Spielberg and minor Spielberg. I think this is like somewhat less good Spielberg. I really enjoy Minority Report. And I've even read the short story that it's based off of. It's all really well done, but it I don't know, just having a hard time articulating why it just doesn't linger in my memory. I don't know if it's like Tom Cruise's like overly intense acting, or just the amount of CG making it feel all kind of artificial. It's very interesting, and I've seen it several times, and I do enjoy it. But it's not something I find myself going back to over and over again.
Yeah, I will say that. Yeah, just for whatever reason, I mean, that film never quite works as well as it seems like it should, based on how well crafted it is. But Caillou, I guess any final thoughts you want to have to reinforce why this movie is amazing?
I mean, a lot of this conversation is just like, it worked for me. It didn't work as well for you guys. But I feel like it comes back to, we talk about Spielberg. I feel like this movie is him really trying very hard and caring very much, and coming up with really powerful ways to get across the points he's making and make the emotional connections. There are a lot of movies that will have a character arc like Tom Cruise's has, where he's got the backstory of like, his kid went missing, and his marriage went down the tubes, and he's very sad about that. And this movie, I feel like is uncommonly good at making you actually feel those emotions. And I think that's true throughout the film. I think and it just has amazing sequences. They're just like brilliantly constructed. The opening murder is fantastic. It's my favorite scene is probably the one where he goes with he's pulled out the precog, and she's like walking around going, "Is this now?" and predicting things. And it's just like that's a feeling that you rarely find in Spielberg. That level of like complexity and emotional richness. So that's why I like this movie.
Okay, though, Caillou, I let Caillou go a little bit over than you should have, but it's fine. He needed to talk about Spielberg, I guess. So
I did finish my sentence.
That was stretching that sentence by quite a bit. But sure. So that's Minority Report. Still potential strong contender on the list. We'll see how it goes overall, and we'll keep going. We'll do now a film from my list, and we're going to do Winter's Bone. And I will start now. Winter's Bone is, most people will know, is the film in which most people in America became aware of who Jennifer Lawrence was. And it was a starring term from her. To me, it was a really good movie. I'll say I'm somewhat partial to it, considering the setting of it was set in like parts, not necessarily the parts of Kentucky and Tennessee I was from, but like similar enough areas to where like I could relate to a lot of some of the struggles that are happening in there. It's a really good kind of working class tale. They use a nice mystery element to it. The strong female characters they used in the movie worked quite well for me, with some nice like background actors to help like reinforce things. Deborah Granite did a really good job in the movie of like helping get like psychologically into the mind of things. She made a lot of really nice choices with the color she used in the movie, and kind of like the palette, and kind of how she really helped express kind of the bleakness of the world she was, I guess, inhabiting and showing. It's kind of, once again, really sad that her career never got to take off after that for a variety of shitty reasons. This film, as I said, obviously it has the strong backbone of Jennifer Lawrence's performance to help like carry it through, but like it was able to kind of like feel real in a way that a lot of movies aren't able to. There's a visceral nature to it, though. How the final mystery is solved, and like the mystery is solved in terms of like what they see and like what they find, and kind of how she finally discovers what she's looking for, is like a really powerful moment that really hits you. And it has some great character turns by a lot of actors who are really good character actors in Hollywood, who kind of got to help fill it out in a way that a lot of movies, similar movies like this, would not, and would just simply be a like showcase for one person. And this, I felt, was actually felt like an enriched full movie experience. All right, so Amy, why don't you start with the rebuttal?
I'm a little bit torn because I think Jennifer Lawrence is terribly overrated. I think she is just a merely okay actress. However, I have a really soft spot for Dale Dickey. And I don't know if I've ever seen her in like a quote-unquote serious movie or prestige movie. So I almost want to give it points just for that. But no, it's enjoyable. For me, it always kind of like teetered on the edge of borderline poverty porn. And it's hard to capture the disparity of that whole Appalachian mountain lifestyle without either romanticizing it or exploiting it to an extent. And it's difficult, and I'm not sure that the film quite balanced that.
Right, fair enough. Okay.
I think Jennifer Lawrence is a revelation in this, and I think this is maybe the best role I've seen her in so far that really plays to her kind of mix of her youth, and yet her kind of a more adult, mature brain. I think that, and this also introduced me to John Hawkes, who I think is a phenomenal character actor, who's gone on to do some great stuff. I don't know. I liked this movie and watched it. I haven't really felt the need to rewatch it since. There's things I really like about it. I think that the plastic bag at the end is just like a horrible gut punch that really encapsulates the entire movie's like aesthetic and meaning. But at the same time, I think like the third act, the mystery kind of goes off the rails a little bit. Like it sort of loses momentum at some point for me. Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's good, but not quite great enough to be like top 100 material in my opinion.
I will agree right now that there's another thing that I do think I think this probably is also my favorite of Jennifer Lawrence's performances. I think it fits a lot really well with like her strengths. I like how Amy brought up the poverty porn idea, because that's one of the reasons I actually liked the movie. Is I actually felt it did tread the line in not going into that, because it gave a sense of humanity to everyone involved, and didn't dwell enough, and it kind of was really about the perseverance of how to get there. But as Caillou said, there was a lot of bleak touches that made it never like quite allowed it to romanticize too much, be like, see, they're fine because they're plucky and they'll get through it. It's kind of like, no, this is still terrible, but they're surviving the best they can. It helped it kind of strive and achieve a balance that I've seen in few films, and that's kind of what made it stand out to me. Is a lot of films like this wouldn't be able to pull off the balance, and this one did in a way that I think needs to be commended. And this is the kind of film that I feel like people may forget about, and that's a shame, because it's just a really great movie. But that's it for now, and we're going to keep moving on to Amy's next film, which is going to be Casino Royale. So Amy,
I love Casino Royale, and I love it because it's almost like they took all the comments about what the boomer generation loved about James Bond and wrote a script that was exactly the opposite of that. It is like the anti-James Bond, but still manages to really get to the nuts and bolts of a really good spy movie. That's James Bond without the gadgets. It's James Bond without the whole team of backup agents and specialists to help him, and he's not jet setting, and he's not being super suave. He's getting things wrong a lot, and he gets beat up a lot. But in the end, it develops the framework for a much more grounded and just hardened James Bond without getting too grim or gritty or anything. There's still a lot of fun to be had there. Plus, Eva Green is the most beautiful woman on the planet, and that never hurts.
That didn't get you to put Sin City 2 on your list.
It didn't even get me in the theater.
All right. Is that all you want to say, Amy, or do you have anything else you want to quickly add before we move on?
No, you can move on.
All right. Caillou, go ahead with your rebuttal.
I like Casino Royale a lot, but I also to me it's kind of the Batman Begins of the Craig films. In that, like, I like it a lot. It does a really great job of kind of rebooting the franchise in a gritty direction, but at the same time, it just has a little bit of jankiness to it. It's just not quite perfect. I think the length of the last section of the film is a little off. I felt like it shouldn't have taken quite as long as it does to do that. And I don't know. There's just some weirdness to it. There's a lot of scenes that sort of have a point to them, but don't connect back up to the main plot really in a strong way. Also, it's just kind of annoying that they switched Baccarat to Texas Hold'em, which is just kind of a weird choice. But I mean, Craig is good. A lot of what I like about the rest of the Bond movies that he's done is in that movie. It's just no Skyfall.
Yeah, I mean, I will say first, that's part of the problem with this. It is no Skyfall. And I kind of feel like this movie falls in the same area that it's still from Caillou. He said about Winter's Bone, which is it's really good, but maybe not top 100. I do like a lot of what happens in the movie. I do think it helped restart the franchise in a way and give it frenetic energy that was desperately missing. And Bond needed this kind of grounded thing to help like restart things, to rebuild, to allow for Skyfall couldn't have happened if Casino Royale hadn't set a really fantastic bedwork. Ultimately, yeah, it's just, to me, it doesn't quite work well enough, even though I will say I think Eva Green is probably the best of, I mean, this isn't really a hard list, but she's actually good. She is the best of like the Bond girls they do in the Craig movies. And so
she's the only one who's actually like a character that they didn't like dismiss to make a thematic point.
Well, like I said, yeah, it's kind of hard. Well, unless you want to argue like we do that Javier Bardem was the true Bond girl of that movie, but of Skyfall. But yeah, I like Casino Royale. It just ultimately wasn't quite good enough for me, and so it just couldn't make the list. And I think it has some structural issues that kind of stop it from hitting some of the highest levels.
I will say quickly over my time that the opening scene is fantastic, and you should go find the Lego version on YouTube because it's great.
All James Bond opening scenes are generally fantastic.
That's true.
Even Spectres. Amy, you have a final thought you want to make just to kind of reinforce why Casino Royale is awesome?
I'm actually going to come out and say that I agree that it is no Skyfall, but it really set the framework for making us care about James Bond as a character. And I don't think that's something the franchise has really ever done before in a serious way. And making every film from that kind of a sequential narrative, and it lives in kind of its own continuity. It all started right there, Casino Royale. That's why I love it.
All right, fair enough.
I think it's definitely a strong contender.
Yeah, it's a strong contender, and we'll see how it goes. We're gonna keep going. Caillou, it's your turn again, and you're gonna talk about Closer.
Closer. I mean, I just love that song. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. No, I mean, it's it's a movie based on a play that never feels like it. It's this really excellent like quartet of actors doing fantastic material. It has a lot to say about kind of love and relationships and sex and what we want from other people and you know how we feel when we get it. Um, it's just one of those movies that like the script is incredible and they act the hell out of it, and the movie cooperates with you know good cinematography and editing and pacing and music. So there's not a whole lot to say about this. It's just like yeah, this is a really good movie and it made my list.
All right, Amy, do you have any?
I can only say that I am very ashamed that I just forgot to put this movie on my list. It was just pure, just like brain fart, everything. Because I love this movie unabashedly. I think it's a great film, and everything Caillou said was absolutely true. It's great performances and just a real gut punch of an ending, but it feels totally earned. It's not some kind of like silly twist ending. It's just a really great culmination of all the plot lines. And for a film that's kind of difficult and hard to watch, I've watched it an unreasonable number of times.
Yeah, I will say that I had a similar experience of I completely forgot the movie existed, and it didn't make my list either. However, that also was kind of one of the things that kept it off my list. Was I feel like it's kind of a problem when I literally don't remember. This isn't like I kind of remembered it. I mean, I literally forgot this film was a thing until it was reminded about it.
Nobody ever talks about it at all, ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's
and Natalie Portman won an Academy Award for it.
Well, no, she won a Golden Globe for it.
Golden Globe, okay.
Kate Blanchett won the Academy Award that year for
okay.
Because she played Katharine Hepburn in Aviator.
Okay.
But I will say Natalie Portman is one of my favorite roles for Natalie Portman that she's done. I think it was a really good role that helped her. It was also, I think, one of the big roles that kind of helped her rebuild her career after Star Wars almost destroyed it. Mike Nichols this was his second to last film, and that he ended up really doing, and it was a great movie. I really love the color scheme in this movie. Like how the look of it overall is just like really amazing. But I mean, ultimately, it's just one of those ones where like I think it was acted. You're correct. It was acted the hell out of, and people did a really good job. And it was a great fit of like taking a lot of actors who have degrees of being able to be like leads to maybe being better support or like whatever, and kind of combining them into one movie that fits really well together. But it still kind of ultimately felt like, just compared to some other movies, it just didn't stack up as well. And even though it's like a great movie that kind of, I will say, similar to Winter's Bone, I do think it is something that should be like thought about more. It to me just didn't resonate in the way that like a movie like Winter's Bone did. Caillou, I guess go ahead and finish your final thoughts if you have anything else, even if it's just movie good.
Movie good. I mean, it's not necessarily the easiest movie to relate to because these characters are all kind of they're all assholes in one way or another, and they're all kind of in their own heads and up their own assholes about the relationships that they're in, and this weird like jockeying rivalry that the guys have, and the reaction that Portman's character has, which is to like pull away and then become an entirely different person. But I still feel like, I mean, the way the movie unfolds is just so great, and the way that the story takes you from kind of one pairing to the next in sequence is a really great way to pace it out. And I think it just ends up being like, I've rewatched that several times just because it's like it's a really good story that's told really well.
All right, that's a good point. Closer is probably actually a pretty strong contender, if only because there's a good chance it would have actually made Amy's list if this happened, and if I had thought of it sooner, maybe it would have made mine too. So we'll see.
You guys, you'll just have to think of a movie on your list to dump like Gravity.
Well, I wouldn't quite go that far, but you never know. All right, we'll keep going now to movie on my list, and the next one up is 500 Days of Summer, and I will go. I will say right now, this is definitely one of the films that I've always loved, despite, I'll just admit right now, there are definite flaws in this movie. It's definitely one of the ones that falls under what it did well. It did so well in my mind that it overcomes some of the stuff, some of the issues that exist with some of the story and a little bit of the pacing and some of the character work. It's a little bit rushed, but like this was to me a really good example of just of a relationship movie and showing how someone gets over it. I love the fact that they were willing to commit to. Mark Webb was willing to commit to a movie that, you know, it states that obviously this is how long it lasts. It's kind of a bittersweet story. It's a kind of romantic, sort of weird, anti-romantic comedy in a lot of ways for reasons, but it's kind of more just highlighting kind of what like first true love can be without acknowledging that doesn't necessarily mean it's the only thing you'll ever have, and how you can kind of get past that. I think it was a really good, helpful like breakup movie in that way too. Joseph Gordon-Levitt gives a really great performance, and as is Zooey Deschanel, and to me it just fit really well together. I like the look of the movie, really always stood out for me. It has like a really kind of at times unique look that it didn't have to have those like visual flourishes. And I mean, it has a actual musical number in it, which I will always approve of and will almost always raise movies points in my head, admittedly, as well as, you know, cartoon birds flying around. So like, it's just a really enjoyable movie that I've always found myself thinking about too, and it always sticks with me in ways that, you know, I kind of expected. Not to mention the soundtrack is great, and that really helps a lot too. So, but that's it for now. Amy, would you like to go ahead and start first?
It's a film that I really enjoyed. And that musical number with the Harrison Ford cameo is pretty outstanding. I really like it, and weirdly, it's just like, I don't know, I guess my like meter just didn't go high enough to think it's one of the greatest. But I'm also just always a little wistful when I see it, because like this is like the film that Mark Webb did before Sony destroyed his career.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like, wow, what if this guy kept making these kind of movies instead of making those god awful Spider-Man movies? And so yeah, it's hard to watch that, but no, it's a brilliant film. And I know it gets a lot of comparisons to Annie Hall, but Annie Hall can be boring as fuck that last hour. And this film is not boring as fuck. So yeah, thumbs up.
Okay.
I do compare it to Annie Hall, and I find it wanting, because a lot of what I like about it is the stuff that Annie Hall does with the you know, breaking the fourth wall and coming up with these different metaphors and editing tricks and split screen and all that. I do think the soundtrack is the best part of this movie. I mean, I don't know. I enjoyed it well enough when I was watching it, but I definitely wouldn't say it's a great movie. I think the ending is way too like cutesy. I think the movie's biggest problem, and I've had like long acrimonious arguments about this online, is that the Summers character is like basically a cipher in this movie, and it kind of boils down to me to be, you know, unlike Annie Hall, which like really goes into that relationship and the reasons why it succeeds and why it fails. I feel like this movie is kind of a movie about like a guy going like, why are women so crazy? Why do they leave us? And so like that limited perspective really turns me off. So I'm definitely down on this movie.
Fair enough. I'll just say that I don't know. I usually don't like if something, just because something isn't compare, like its comparisons to Annie Hall to me don't really affect me, because one, Annie Hall would have made this list easily, and two, just because it's compared to a great movie doesn't like make it inherently a lesser one. So I think both films could, you know, you can have room for both things. To me, I will say that I actually think the things it does with Zooey Deschanel's character is they do a decent job of taking a little bit of the deconstruction of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl state there, and only in that she is given just enough to show how she's a person who also was running away from a relationship, and the fact they showed like this relationship helped her realize what she wanted is kind of like, it felt like a real thing, and movies don't usually do like stepping stone relationships like that. So it just kind of always stood out for me, and the soundtrack is awesome. So vote for this movie, you know. So yeah, that's it for now. We're going to keep going, and it is now Amy's turn once again, and we're going to do Burn After Reading. So Amy, go.
right after reading is I don't know if it's the best Coen's comedy, but it's up there. It's just I love what the Coens do in terms of just subverting audience expectations, even in just kind of like benign, silly ways. Like it casts all of these just amazing, iconic, award-winning dramatic actors and makes them play really, really stupid characters. George Clooney, who's just like this total doofus and wears his pants up around his belly button and, has those, tweed belts that every dad has. And, Brad Pitt playing the completely shallow, stupid fitness trainer. But yeah, I mean, I love how Coen's comedies can be a bit mean-spirited. I know that's been a complaint lately with them sometimes, but I don't know, it doesn't seem like they're ever taking it out on anybody or any specific group personally. It's just like they create these really stupid characters and then craft stories around them that those characters usually get their comeuppance. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of great lines, and God, like that whole dramatic build-up to find out what George Clooney is building in his garage. Like, it has that big reveal, you're like, oh, fuck, seriously? Oh, my God. Just so many unexpected, great little moments like that, and which is why I love the Coens.
All right. Kai, go ahead.
The Coens made this after No Country for Old Men, and as much as I felt like that movie was great for how it kind of reversed expectations on their like crime dramas, I felt like this one was kind of the mirror of that. And it one of the things that does it so great is it subverts expectations like so much and so often that by the end of the movie they're left with like nothing. And there's that great scene of like, what have we learned? Absolutely fucking nothing. Is just like one of the great endings to any comedy. It's not on my list just because like I've never really felt the urge to rewatch it. But I definitely enjoyed it. The reveal you're talking about is great. The performances are really funny. It's just a really, dumb story that everybody like in the movie takes more seriously than it warrants, which is great. It's just like, yeah, it's very funny. And even though I think it's kind of minor Coen work, it's still a really, really well-made movie.
Yeah, I will say that this movie is way better than like it really had any right to be, just based on what the story is. But like, the Coens are really put together, and obviously getting that type of talent and letting them just kind of have fun, and you definitely see it. And I will say, I like the fact the movie didn't cross the line of making it clear where like sometimes movies are having so much fun that they have it even at the expense of the audience, and they never quite crossed that line. The expectation subversions was always really good. I don't know. To me, I mean, obviously, I already don't like the Coens nearly as much as both of you do, but to me, this film just never really like. I don't know. It just felt too slight in a way, and I use this word very hesitantly since I hate that word. But it never really screamed to me as like a top 100 film. I saw it was a good movie. It was solid. It's just another example of them taking a C story and making it a B story, which is really good and commendable. But that's, to me, all it really was. Just never really even considered making my list. But Amy, go ahead and I guess finish any final thoughts you have about this movie, since you do very much enjoy it.
I mean, I can't really disagree that it's more minor Coen, because I mean they're not really saying anything super meaningful about the human condition, and there's not a lot of like to dig into beyond the most surface level stuff. But it's it's a smart, silly comedy, and I don't know if I can count the number of those that exist on one hand. I mean, and it's very smart and very silly, and it's a great time.
And there's nothing wrong with putting a film on here because it's so entertaining. So that's a fair point.
Yeah.
We will. That will certainly come up, I'm sure, with other films. All right, we'll keep moving on along. We're in the final phase of each of our films for this edition of the podcast. So we'll go ahead and start with Caillou. And the last film you're going to talk about today is Dredd.
Dredd was one of the main movies that I looked at my list and was like, I should give this up for Gravity, because it is equally empty on a thematic level, but still like really fun and technically proficient. but it's just damn fun. So I'm gonna pull Donald Trump and keep you all in suspense as to what I'm gonna dump for Gravity. I think, speaking of the movie itself, it's this really fantastic action movie that's just like propulsive and energetic, and it just takes its subject matter very seriously, even though it's this ridiculous movie about a future cop brutally murdering his way up a giant like mega skyscraper slum full of drug dealers. And it just is so much right. Carl Urban's performance is fantastic, and the fact that you never see his face, he's just doing the whole thing with his chin and his voice is just like phenomenal. I think it's underseen and underrated, even though it's becoming something of a cult film, especially among action aficionados. There's just so much fun stuff it does. The slow motion drug sequences, the way the action progresses. It has a few flaws to it, mostly because it's just like chopped to the bone in service of being like a very fast and exciting 90-minute action movie. I love the way it deals with world building, where it very quickly just establishes like the bare minimum of like, oh, this is a future, everything sucks, everybody's crammed in these giant buildings, and everybody's poor, and the police are tremendously violent, and it's just like, okay, that's all you need to know, and we're gonna run with it. So I think even though the story is very slight and it doesn't say anything at all, I'm just like, this is just a fucking great time at the movies.
All right. First off, I'll just go and I'll say that, yeah, this is a extraordinarily fun movie, and it is like a visual like treat. The way they are able to, like you said, the slow motion scenes, the colors, and the way they do the color in this movie, how they're able to make what should have been how they use what they had to make a movie that should have been could have been much more generic, like feel and have like a grit to it that you wouldn't expect. Obviously as a minor thing, the fact that unlike in the Sylvester Stallone movie, they correctly showed Judge Dredd as never removing his helmet, which was nice. Carl Urban also he fit very well into this role of like the gruff person, and he was able to give, like, I will say I enjoyed the emotional beats. He was able to do just enough with him and his like assistant assigned like partner, and Elizabeth Thirlby, yeah, she got to give a really solid performance that I think is what really helped her. And also having Lena Headey in it as the villain, like that gave a lot to it. Ultimately for me, like you said, it is to me there's just not quite enough there. I really like this movie, but it's another one. I remember it fondly, but it just doesn't scream top 100 to me. And it just couldn't ultimately make the list. And there are some definite like story issues that come from when your movie is just nonstop action scenes. Amy, what about you?
Yeah, much the same. Really enjoyed it. I really like films that just get straight to the point and aren't afraid to be very economical. And this film is just super duper economical. There's not a lot of time spent wasted on anything other than the conflict. And Dredd and was it Anderson? Is that her name? That they fight their way up the building, and no, it's just just bare bones, straight to the point kind of story. And yeah, Carl Urban manages to give a great performance as a talking chin. No, there's so much about that movie I like, but also there's so little about the movie. There's like nothing else. I mean, it feels like the movie even starts like at the second act of another movie. Like it's it's just like doesn't give a shit. It's just like, and here we are.
All right.
Now returning to Dredd. It's like, oh, we missed everything before the commercial break. That was still in service of being economical. It just was like, nope, we're just gonna go straight to the shooting, and it did.
Okay. Caillou, you have any final like endearing thoughts you wish to say about Dredd?
I go back and forth on whether, on like this question of like how much theme matters, how much does matter versus like entertainment and execution. And the reason I kind of backed away from dumping this movie is that I think that there are actually way fewer movies like this than you'd think. That are smaller movies, lower budget movies, sci-fi action genre pieces that stick to their guns, no pun intended, and work with economy and wit to them. To craft a really strong, entertaining experience that just like goes like gangbusters. So I think that movies like that should be celebrated, and that's why I think it actually is worthy of at least my top 100.
Yeah, fair enough. Once again, movies that are entertaining as this are always going to have strong suits. And I think this could end up being a stronger contender than you might originally think.
Also, the music is excellent.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go on now to my final film, which is Jason Reitman's Up in the Air. I'll begin now. This was probably my favorite film from the year it came out. I really think it does a great job it's a great character study. It's based on a pretty solid book, but I think, it's based on both a short story that then became a book, essay type thing, that, but I think it improved upon because it took a character that really shouldn't have been. It used the inherent greatness of George Clooney's charm to kind of put a shitty person within the George Clooney charm suit, and had like kind of work with the idea of like what you can do with that. And I felt it built in a way that worked really well. Anna Kendrick gave a really solid performance, I felt, as a person who was working with him and kind of like seeing the lifestyle he lived and the choices he was making, and kind of as a good fresh face to make comments on. I felt the script is just a really smart script that kind of really cut to a lot of things about like life and like decisions we make. This film kind of, to me, it has a really interesting, like bittersweet ending, and of kind of like the both positive and negatives that can come from having like opening yourself up to people, and like how that can both be helpful because it opens you up to new experiences and trying to do things different in the world, but also can, scoop you out and leave you hollow, and then kind of how you and what you kind of do to rebuild from that. And it always just kind of stuck with me in a way. It ended up having a kind of timeliness to it, I guess, because it ended up happening around the time as, when we were still kind of dealing with recession type things, and the job economy wasn't working the greatest. That made the film kind of actually work a lot better. And it kind of just showed the lifestyle of like a nomadic lifestyle in a way that a lot of films, I think, haven't shown it, a different one using planes. And so, yeah, it always just worked really well for me. It's a great movie. Amy, why don't you go ahead and talk about it first?
I really liked it, but I think, the George Clooney charm suit, like you said, actually kind of plays against the movie in a way. Certainly as the movie, as his art progressed, and he's, more and more sympathetic, and it kind of ends on that bittersweet note. But like at the end of it, you're just like, oh, wow, he's still George Clooney and got to bang Vera Farmiga. So things still kind of worked out for him. I mean, like, this guy's not going to go home and like, have to go back to his trailer and, look like Clint Howard.
He does still have a job at the end of the movie, unlike many other characters.
Right. I mean, I don't think it's Reitman's best script. Reitman's scripts are kind of all over the map for me. Especially Thank You for Smoking. Just not a fan of that whole thing. But no, I think if they had to cast somebody else in the role that had just a little bit more weather-beaten, weary look to him, like a Sam Rockwell or something like that, I think it would actually work more in the favor of the film. I think Clooney's maybe too good for that role.
All right. Okay.
Or at least too charming.
I really like this movie. There are a couple problems to it that I may not even get to because I'm going to talk about how much I like it. I've heard that Reitman's like advice to directors is like, look at your shot list and delete everything that's only in there because it's cool. And I think about that a lot in terms of like that montage when he's going through the airport in the beginning, and it's just this series of very precise shots as he's like putting the handle in the suitcase and the suitcase up on the rack and so on. And it's just like it really sells this idea of a guy whose work has no life to it. And I really like that. Like you said, it's a fantastic character study. It's really well acted. The script is generally really good. I think it's a little, it loses a little steam in the third act when he's like not on a plane anymore. And I think I think that the real people that they mix into the movie, that the theme of like firing people in the recession, like doesn't quite fit with the rest of it in the best way. But I still think it's a really good movie. This is a pretty strong contender for me.
All right. Yeah, I'll just quickly say that A lot of times I think I would probably agree with you, Amy, that his charm would work against it. It just, to me, I guess it just worked really well because it allowed the person to be as like bad as he could be, but like still pull off the level. Sam Rockwell probably would have been a strong contender, but I actually just thought Clooney actually fit this role really well, strangely, just because it was like, because George Clooney is so good, he made it really work well. And that, like, it always just kind of stuck with me, and like it helped. I think it also helped, like, I think Clooney was necessary since the beginning of the film. He was supposed to appear so together, and like his life was great. And then
he's supposed to have this, doesn't. He's supposed to have this very stylish facade, and that kind of fits.
And so once it goes away, I think that's the difference, and that's why I think it was good that they went towards the side of charm versus not. But yeah, ultimately, this is a great movie. I think it should be on the list, and it was a very close contender, honestly, for my top 10. But that's it for Up in the Air, and now we're going to do the final film we're going to discuss in this podcast, and that's Amy is going to discuss V for Vendetta. So go ahead, Amy.
Actually, I've never seen it. No, I'm kidding. No, I go back and forth on V for Vendetta because it's not a subtle film.
No.
At any point from about 3 minutes in until after the credits roll, not till the credits roll, but like even during the credits, it's like, Rolling Stones doing Street Fighting Man. It's just like, this is an angry, very direct film. But I mean, after this week, I mean, it still feels very timely. And, considering the story was written, like 30 years ago now, maybe more. But no, I mean, it's one of those movies that plays everything, out in the open and puts its heart on its sleeve and doesn't dance around with a lot of, subtext about what it's talking about. It's just like, hey, Nazis are bad. And you should punch them, and it doesn't matter who they are or where they are or how much money or power they have. If there's Nazis, you should punch them. And yeah, I mean, it's got some very problematic aspects, especially toward the end of the second act with the whole fake kidnapping and all this other stuff. Spoiler alert! Sorry, 12-year-old movie. No, it's still a great movie with some great performances. Natalie Portman's accent notwithstanding. And no, it's just, it's great little heartbreaking moments, like Stephen Fry and his little monologue, and then, his ultimate fate, and then, all the mask reveal at the end. It's just, I cry like a baby at the end of it every time I watch it. Every time. Yeah, like I'm sitting there going, why am I doing this? I've seen this before. I know this happens.
Emotional resonance for the win, then. All right. Yeah. Caillou, go ahead, I guess, with your first rebuttal.
I really like this movie. I kind of realized when you were talking about it that this movie is, even though they didn't direct it, it feels like late stage Wachowski in that it wears its heart so much on its sleeve. But unlike their films and TV work of late, like the script actually hangs together. It is really tight. So yeah, I mean, this definitely comes down to like how much you just like the movie's kind of bombastic and unsubtle nature. But more and more, I think that it's actually kind of what this material needs. And like you said, it's definitely a movie that stays relevant. I mean, the comic was written about Thatcher. The movie seemed to me at the time to be about Bush. But really, I think it's just about like, anytime this kind of government arises, we need symbols like V to fight it and to inspire us to do so. So I think it's a really strong movie.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked V for Vendetta. I mean, it's always going to have both the strengths and weaknesses of it. It's based off a work that was written by Alan Moore. So you get all the strengths of being an Alan Moore script, and you get all the weaknesses of being an Alan Moore script. Wachowski's, I think, did a really good job of like adapting and kind of helping bring it over. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, just the film doesn't quite work as well from a point, probably because James McKee is the one who directed it, and he did a solid start here, but kind of seeing what he's done since then, it kind of, I think, reinforces that like his like directing style is not necessarily as strong a thing I think as that movie needed. I will say the Stephen Fry part of the movie is like amazing, and like that's probably to me like the best part of the movie.
Great performances overall.
Yeah, it's it does stick like out, like it does have stuff that sticks out, and it's a very resonant movie. Definitely now with in general, I think it's going to always. There's the argument you made that this movie will kind of represent a message that should always kind of be around, and that kind of carries it. I just think the movie itself is a little bit more of like the movie itself isn't strong enough to justify like strong thematic stuff that's associated with it. It's kind of like it feels like an important movie, but not necessarily a great movie. But Amy, I guess go ahead and give your final thoughts.
I wanted to agree with something that you said about the way the Wachowskis adapted it. Because the source material has some really weird stuff in there that just like doesn't make a lot of sense, period, why somebody would do that, other than you go, oh, it's Alan Moore.
Like the computer.
That's what I was going to talk about. It was like, yeah, Adam Sutler is just like in love with this computer, and like it's just like, where is this coming from? And also, he's not Adam Sutler. He's Adam Susan, and it was just some small modifications that I think really helped out the story to be more streamlined and more focused on what the important stuff was.
All right. I think still though this is probably a decent contender, as a lot of the films we've talked today are. So that's it for this edition of the podcast. We will continue on in future editions to have more of these films. We'll talk about some degree of this many to maybe some more, depending on it as we kind of move along, and we'll slowly get through it until we can finally unveil our list. As always, you can find our other thoughts on pop culture on our blog, which you can find at www.insidethecracken.com. You can also follow Amy's thoughts on Twitter at
Amy Davidson at _Atomica_.
And fortunately, we have to go now. The Kraken is really getting confused as to whether or not it can wear a Trump mask or not, and we're trying to tell him why it's a bad idea.
All right.
That was just for you, Kai.
Thank you.
I gave you one.
All right, everybody stop the recording. It's good to know we only have 9 more hours to go on this series, or thereabouts for this section.
No.
That took an hour and 10, and we did 15 movies, and we have 150 to go through.
12 movies.
Ah, that's right. Okay. Well. All right. This is actually episode 7.
Okay. Okay. While this is exporting. So in the emails, we have a list of every movie people haven't seen.
Yeah.
I believe I then even made a list of, because I haven't seen 47 of them. Oh, right. I don't have them. Right. The ones that looks like I made, the very last email, I believe is the one in which, no, that's not right. That's just the master list.
Kai, that should be syncing to the podcast Dropbox file.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I see what happened. Okay, that makes more sense. I combined your list together because you did them separately.
Are you okay if I go to sleep?
Yeah.
I got work in the morning.
No, go to sleep. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know. I will have free time Wednesday of this week, but then after that I'll be in PAX. I guess I'll also have free time Monday after work. Okay.
All right.
So Monday night or Wednesday night.
Well, we'll definitely try to do it probably. It will depend. Wednesday will depend on. We'll try to do it Wednesday probably.
Okay.
But yeah, I said the list of, you saw the ones you haven't watched, so you can kind of make it. We'll try to make a a list where at least can determine, I think, of the movies that only people only see one of, and we'll work from there. All right. Have a good night, Amy.
Good night.
All right.
get that synced.
Okay, so looks like I have.
Interesting. Oh, let's see. It's just 2 seconds.
34 movies to watch.
Yeah, I have 47. Amy had like oh, I know what it was. I think we couldn't make it. I don't think Amy ever actually emailed us the list of things she had. I think she just told us.
Oh shit. Well, okay. I'll tell her to make a
think
list.
That's what happened. You and I had ours. We can never make the full list because yeah. I mean, I can tell you right now, just quickly, based on the ones you haven't seen of Amy's.
Okay.
I have not seen Ghost World. I have not seen The Man Who Wasn't. I have not seen. I've basically only seen 2 of the films you haven't seen that you.
Okay. Which
Inside,
two?
Inside Llewyn Davis and 22 Jump Street I've seen.
Okay.
So this is what I figured. Amy's was the one I figured we were going to have to actually watch. You and I were just going to have to get our fucking asses and watch this movie.
Well, I mean, we have to I'm going to try and watch as many as possible. Now that I'm not really doing 2016 anymore, but we definitely have to coordinate at some point based on like just one of us has to watch at least one of us has to watch every one of these. So
I think if I remember correctly, it was like 20 something. It seemed like based on talking what Amy said.
Yeah.
So it was like or something enough to where it sounded like it would be like everyone needed to watch like 8 movies or something like that.
I'm going to send her
a reasonable number or something.
I'm going to send her a message that says, "Give me your list."
Yeah, I don't remember it, but like, because yeah, like my thing is that I would watch more of these if we were not on the middle of doing both Oscars, and I still have some 2016 stuff to do.
Yeah.
You know, from movies, I still have 2016 stuff to do from the Oscar stuff in general, and there are still movies I'm still watching from there. So, because there's probably at least I'm close enough now where I can push this through, and I really want to see if I can pull up having seen every single thing that was nominated, with the exception of probably once again short docs because they happen so fucking far away from me.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I remember correctly, Amy's is the one that, because a lot of the ones even off of my list are from Amy's. So if I remember correctly.
Fred, Nick, and Nora.
No, actually they're about the same. It looks like it's about the same.
Closer. So. What's about the same?
I think I had about half and half actually. Of like it was like 23 from your list and 24 from Amy's list.
Okay. Sure. What was the last one we did today?
Beef Vendetta.
Minor Report.
Oh, last one you did?
Yeah, it was Minor Report.
The last one.
It was Minor Report. I got it.
That was not the last one you did.
It was the last one I couldn't remember.
Okay. But it was not the last one you did.
What are you going to go do? Do you have time?
What do you need?
Nothing. I'm just asking.
Oh, I'm trying to go. I'm going to go see if I can see. My app is working, so I'm going to try to go fucking see the movie.
Okay. What are you saying?
20th Century Women. Are you happy? I did it.
20th Century Woman, you mean?
Oh, fuck you. All right. I need to go. I'm afraid the app's going to stop working because it's going to realize it's working still, and I'm going to be like, no. This is fine though. This may just be that it's like an intermittent. I can live with intermittent because then I just have to plan accordingly. I just need to know it's not going to always be this way.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and write a bunch of stuff tomorrow, I guess. Okay. Do this. The video game will not at least get. I can guarantee I'll get the video game thing done tomorrow because it's just me adding stuff. I hopefully will get the movie one done.
Well, I just
need to write.
I would prefer that all the best stuff finish going up this week. So.
Well, I mean, I'm going to try. The TV one I can make no guarantees on since I do have to work.
Okay.
And I'm going to probably try to get this, but at worst, I'm going to try to get the TV one. And then do we still want to do the miscellaneous one?
We'll just, once everything else is done, I'm just going to send it a group email. It's like, is there anything else anybody want to talk about?
The TV one's the only one. They're going to be done. We have to get them all done before January, obviously.
That's what I'm saying.
The other problem is that the Oscars are being announced this week.
Yeah.
So it kind of fucks some things.
All right.
Probably I have to, part of what I have to do tomorrow is look to see if anything's happened enough for me to talk about anything new.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a brief one, like maybe I can talk about editing briefly or something. Mm-hmm. And then the next one is just going to be on like the 23rd or I'm gonna have to actually probably write it early. Well, it'll depend on my shifts are. Part of this will depend on when I find out these shifts are for working.
Yeah, I was gonna say like try and front load this stuff because you're gonna be working.
But I mean, it's not gonna be that many hours. It just depends because if I'm working the late shift, I'll have time to write it. If I'm working like the weird shift, it's just gonna depend. Or if I'm working the morning shift, I'll have time to write it. It'll be done. So it just depends. But yeah, we'll talk more of this, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. See you.